What if the most powerful fat-burning moment of your entire day happens before you even reach for your coffee? And most people sleep right through it. Imagine for a moment that you have never taken a single sip of coffee in your life. No caffeine, no stimulants, nothing. And yet every morning, somewhere between 6 and 8 o'clock, your body ignites. Your temperature rises by a fraction of a degree. Your heart rate climbs gently, like a tide coming in. Your cortisol, not the villain it is so often made to seem, but a quiet, purposeful messenger, peaks at its highest natural point of the entire day. This is not accidental. This is design. Millions of years of evolutionary engineering compressed into a daily biological event that most of us sleep through or override with a thermos. The circadian rhythm is not simply a fancy name for a sleep schedule. It is a master regulatory system woven into the fabric of nearly every cell in your body. Your liver has its own clock. Your fat tissue has its own clock. And here is what science has begun to understand with increasing clarity. The timing of your actions in the morning does not just influence how you feel. It determines how efficiently your body metabolizes energy, partitions fuel, and decides whether to reach into its fat stores or raid the glucose in your bloodstream. Morning is not just the start of the day. It is the opening note of a metabolic symphony, and most of us are playing it out of tune. 60 seconds of cold water in the morning can trigger a 300% surge in the hormone that tells your fat cells to burn. And most showers never get there. There is a kind of fat inside your body that most people have never heard of. It is not the soft, stubborn fat you might pinch at your waistline. It is brown adipose tissue, a specialized metabolically active fat that exists for one remarkable purpose: to generate heat. Brown fat is your body's internal furnace, and for most of human history it was activated regularly because mornings were cold. The cave had no thermostat. The river had no hot setting. The body learned over millennia to respond to cold not with dread but with fire. When you expose your body to cold water in the morning, even for 60 seconds, and even at the end of a warm shower, something precise happens. Norepinephrine, a neurotransmitter and hormone, surges by as much as 300%. Brown fat awakens. It begins oxidizing stored lipids, burning fat, not as a side effect, but as its primary job. The body does not care whether the cold lasts 2 minutes or 10. What matters is the signal, and that signal, sent clearly and consistently each morning, trains your metabolism to be a more active, more responsive engine throughout the rest of the day. Cold is not punishment. Cold is a conversation between you and your biology, and the body, remarkably, listens. Before you eat a single calorie tomorrow morning, your body is already searching for fuel, and what it reaches for next depends entirely on whether you move. There is a window, quiet, brief, and deeply underappreciated, that exists between the moment you wake and the moment you eat. In that window, your insulin is low. Your glycogen stores, the sugar your muscles hold in reserve, are partially depleted from the night, and your body, ancient and intelligent, is scanning for fuel. If you move during that window, not aggressively, not punishingly, but with intention, something remarkable unfolds. The body, finding no incoming glucose to burn, turns to its stored fat with a kind of quiet efficiency that is almost impossible to replicate at any other point in the day. This is the science of fasted movement, and it is not a fitness trend. It is a return to the natural human rhythm. Our ancestors did not eat before they hunted. They moved first, and the body learned to make that movement possible by becoming extraordinarily skilled at liberating and burning stored fat. A 20-minute walk, a gentle cycle, body weight movements in the morning light. None of these need to be heroic. What they need to be is consistent and timed. Because timing in metabolic biology is not a footnote. It is often the entire story. What you eat first in the morning does not just fuel your body. It sets the hormonal tone for every hunger signal, every craving, and every fat storage decision you make for the next 12 hours. When most people think of breakfast, they think of energy, fuel to start the day, and so they reach for carbohydrates, bread, cereal, fruit juice, foods that spike glucose rapidly and feel, for a short while, like awakening. But there is another way to think about the morning meal, one rooted not in comfort, but in biology. Protein, consumed early, does something that no carbohydrate can fully replicate. It suppresses ghrelin, the hormone your stomach releases when it wants to be noticed, when it insists that you are hungry, when it pulls your attention toward food with a persistence that feels almost personal. But protein does more than silence hunger. It activates the thermic effect of feeding, the caloric cost of digestion itself. Your body burns somewhere between 20 and 30% of the energy in protein just by metabolizing it. No other macronutrient comes close. And in the presence of adequate protein, muscle tissue, your most metabolically active tissue, the tissue that burns fat even at rest, is preserved, protected, and given a signal to remain. Muscle is not vanity. Muscle is metabolism. And every morning you choose protein over sugar, you are voting, quietly and powerfully, for a more efficient body. The first light that enters your eyes each morning does not just wake up your brain, it sets the hormonal clock that decides how much fat your body will store today. There is a moment, just after sunrise, when the light that enters your eyes is different from any other light you will encounter for the rest of the day. It is lower in angle, richer in specific wavelengths, and it carries information, not metaphorically, but biologically. The retina contains specialized cells called intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells that have nothing to do with vision in the traditional sense. They do not help you see shapes or colors. They exist solely to report one thing to the brain. What time is it? And morning light, natural morning light, tells the brain with extraordinary precision, it is now. Begin. This signal cascades. It suppresses residual melatonin. It sets the peak and timing of the cortisol awakening response. It anchors your entire hormonal day, including the rhythms of leptin, the hormone that tells you when you are satisfied, and the rhythms of insulin sensitivity, which determines how effectively your cells respond to glucose rather than storing it as fat. When you replace that first light exposure with a phone screen, with artificial blue-enriched indoor lighting, with the flat glow of a laptop, you send a confused and incomplete signal. The clock inside you hesitates. And that hesitation, repeated daily, accumulates into metabolic noise, a subtle but real disruption in the hormonal choreography that governs whether your body burns fat or hoards it. 10 minutes of morning sky. That is all it takes to tune the instrument.